The guys on board wanted me to ramble a bit. I presume they want me to ramble about music, because there's very little else that I know about. Basically, what should I talk about? Okay. When I'm typically writing a piece of music, I'm trancing out. My head is switched off, I'm not thinking about much, and I'm just listening to each section as I'm working along. I'd start and I'd have a loop running, I would listen to it over and over and just see if there's some simple things that I could adjust with it. Maybe it's like the volumes, maybe the sound isn't fitting quite right. I might have previously had parts that had worked, but they just don't fit, and I feel like they're not working to the benefit of the track. I'll just delete them. And I'd go along and I'd just like let my intuition work for generating the breaks and things like that. I'd start getting niggles about melodies getting boring or repetitive, and then I'd start off by trying to do easy things like dropping them out and bringing in another instrument, or then actually manually writing sections to fit, like bespoke. And then I just keep going and keep going, chipping out little bits and trying to put in more and more work each time. If I'd spend 7 days on a piece of music, meaning 7 days, I mean a few hours or a couple of hours, maybe 30 minutes on another day, working on a piece, there'll be a lot of detail work. Most of the music that I do probably only has like 2 days work on it, where the first day would be generating the loop and getting that as solid as I could, and then the next day I'd probably arrange. If things really stand out, or I feel that I need to do more work, then yeah, that happens. It usually gets posted on SoundCloud, then if people feedback, then great or whatever, but I don't ever expect that. I just get back and work, and then push it further so people can see sort of like an incremental change in the music, and if it's being pushed forward. If a lot of people get positive about a track, then I will tend to go back to that one, and then really bang it into shape, and sometimes take it in a completely different direction as well. If anything bores me after a couple of weeks, I just remove it, like part wise. If melodies don't work or the sounds are too weak, I do headphone checks constantly when I'm falling asleep at night, and then I pick up errors like reverbs that are too bright, or stereo sounds that are just too extreme, or points at when things in the mix are too loud on headphones. Then I'd come back and address it in the main mix. I do find that like the highs I tend to get, I make more errors with, because the volumes that I tend to monitor out and listen to, because I tend to like right here, and then when it's near working, I'll just get up off my seat and then just start dancing. That to me is when a track gets that flow. Every track that I try and do, I try and get it so my mind is not interrupted as a producer by anything that's happening. So I'll reach the end and think, yeah, that's good. And you know, I think when people say I can't finish my music, it's because they're missing that point of actually getting up, standing up and listening to their own tune. As a dancer or a listener and things like that, they need to get up, and what you find is as you're listening, you'll hear something that needs to be done, so you need to straight away get back to the door and do it right away. You know, if you find that you get short-term memory loss or something like that, you will need to deal with it straight away. You know, don't be afraid to stop, correct it. If you know that something else is going to happen that needs to be changed, do it then. Get back up, dance, move around, you know, and see if it keeps you going. What you'll tend to find is, as you get towards the end of a track, if your track's too long, you'll start feeling tired and bored of what's going on. That's a strong sign from your own body to, cut some parts out, make the track shorter, it's too long, or try and bear in mind that a DJ might be mixing with your music, and how to maybe keep a little bit of interest going towards the end. That's a common mistake that I make an awful lot, is the tracks tend to drag on too much, which I try and attend to and improve as I go on in time. Mastering wise, I try and deal with like the initial big problem areas like bass and drums, tidy those up first, then watch out for the highs. Any sounds that I can pull down into the mix during like very busy passages, I'd bring them down so they're still affecting the flow, but they might not be totally audible. Like in this track I had, there's some like little shakers, and there's a second pattern that's just doing like some occasional shaker patterns, and it's only just affecting the other sounds' flow. So, rather than having sounds layered on sounds, I start pulling these back down to try and get some clarity in the mix, and just concentrate most of my efforts on the main sounds which are being used to keep the flow going or to entertain. Previously, I might have spent probably on this sound about 4 hours on a bass drum, purely because I wanted a devastating low bass drum with a really nice sort of sub-feel to it, and it's like rolling around in the background and everything like that. It sounds almost out of control, but it's controlled, and I would have just looped that and just dealt with every part of the sound I could. Tried numerous methods, numerous EQs. I'd bring in different effects in and out, just sort of keep trying to edit things until they're perfect, and then sort of a few sort of mastering touches, lifting the signal, crushing it. There's like 2 EQs alone there, filters and compressors, side chains as well, things like that. Sort of quite unusual in here. This is a breakbeat track, and I've got the snare side chaining the bass drum, which is sort of a new trick for me, but it worked really well in that situation. So I spend a lot of time experimenting still, but also using like sort of a few known techniques to try and sort of keep things clean. There's nowhere on this planet that I'm ever going to know everything or how to do all this stuff, so I'm just going to try and get my source sounds as clean as possible, so if I do need to go and get something mastered one day, that I can run off stems and then send it to a proper suite to get it dealt with. But until then, all I can do is deal with the source and get all these sounds nice and clean. And I just, the priority for me goes from the primary elements, the bass, the bass drum, sorry, and in this track, because it's breakbeat, it's the snare, and the loop gets, the main loop would get like a lot of attention and things like that. Here, there's a lot going on in there as well, just to sort of keep that nice and clean and bright. And the bass line itself again was, I wanted something very low to work with the bass drum, very dark and chilled out, and that took a good few hours. So a lot of time invested in the source, really, and then moving on. And things do change, I found as, because a few parts got deleted, that I had more space in the mix and I could make a few adjustments to actually make things work in a nice way. Hope that's helped.